All right.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining Qdabra's webinar, weekly webinar. This week I'm talking about two time-saving techniques for simple form creation. And we have the typical webinar goals. We're trying to present a relevant topic to you. It's low impact to your day, timely, quick. And nothing is no screenshots here. Everything is for real. So to start off with, we've got two techniques for you, two main techniques. One is the starter forms, and the other is config forms. I'm going to show these to you in a second, but real quick, the benefit to the starter form is to save you time to create a form from scratch, and the config forms actually save you even more time. So let's talk about these. I'm going to show you, first of all, when we look at InfoPath 2010, I'm just going to go to my website here. Actually, if you start up the designer in InfoPath, this is 2013, but from 2010 on, the first option that you see is the SharePoint list. So Microsoft added this option in 2010, and the intent was to make it easy for you to create forms, and simplifying the data source, simplifying the publishing steps. And what that gives you is, if you we have a survey list form here, so we've created this survey form from scratch, and I'm going to show you how to customize it in a second. But you get a simple form that you can quickly fill out in the browser, and here's an example of a list form. Now I have this form open actually on my machine. And here it is. So this is InfoPath Designer with the list option. So you can see on the right the data source is flat. There's no repeating data structures. Very simple. And I can take my, I can go into my, we're going to provide you with this sample form which has a nice header and a footer to it, which you can change with your logos and your company's tagline. You can change the font, change the formatting. And what you're going to get from us as part of the webinar pack today is this form here. And this is a list form. And you can see here that we've added a bunch of questions here, just basically what we call placeholder text for your question. So what you would end up doing is you'd just use our template here to go in and add your questions. And that's what I've done with the sample I'm going to publish here in a second. Well, I want to talk about list forms though, because I want to contrast it with the two techniques we're going to show you. This is not the technique that we're recommending you use, but it's interesting. So here, what you do is you would then create your form. We've added a bunch of questions already over here. Now, with list forms, you can, of course, create list forms from scratch, but what you don't get is the ability to update an existing, you don't get the ability to create a new list from scratch. So here, if we go to publish, you'll see that we don't have the option of creating a new list. So we always have to update that existing list. So that's one of the drawbacks with the list form. The other drawback is, let's say I'm dragging in here, let's say I want to say presentation feedback. I'm going to create a form here, and it defaults to Qdabra on my machine. I need to fix that. But we're going to add a field for which presentation did you attend, which webinar did you attend. This will be a drop-down. And what we want to do is drag the control over. So we've actually just go in here to the control. And notice when I right-click on this, I only get the text box. I don't get the other control options. But that's okay. I can still add the text box, right-click it in the view, and change it to a drop-down. So that's easy to do. And then you can, right-click it and add to the drop-down the value, the different values that you want to present to the user. So this is basically how you're going to modify the starter form. We give you the starter form that's kind of pre-filled with 20 questions just to give you placeholders to drag and drop things over. And we even give you the, we pre-fill it with the questions in the data source. And then, of course, if you only have 2 questions or so, you can just go ahead and delete these other questions. That's easy to do. And that's what I've done over here on this other form, which I've already kind of pre-created. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish this out. And once again, the main drawback here is that you can only publish it to the site where you already had it. So it's publishing it now to SharePoint, and if we go back to our SharePoint site, we'll see the new form with those 2 questions. Now, one of the other drawbacks of the list form is the okay. So we've got our value here. We're going to submit it, and there's our new survey form. Now, you can see that this mapping that data that I created into these columns. The problem here is if I change the form, obviously those columns don't match anymore. So we'd have to, we don't have an easy way to aggregate the data across surveys. So let's go back to the presentation. So the drawback here for the starter form is that you don't have as many columns. So if you start creating a list form and you extend it and extend it and extend it, at some point you will run out of space. And typically it's around 80 columns, but it depends on the kind of data that you're using, because the limits are based on whether it's string data or date column data or some kind of a numeric value. Typically we see people hitting the max around 80, and when you hit the max, it's game over. You can't publish your form anymore. There are no repeating controls, and of course you can't create new lists easily from the publish option. But it's easy to use, and it will automatically map your people picker to columns. Okay, so now let's look at one of the techniques that we're recommending today, and this is the InfoPath form. And we're going to, so list forms are different. List forms are not InfoPath forms. I'm just going to close my list form here so I don't get confused where I'm at. Now I've got on the site another library here where I've got my list forms. This list form is an InfoPath form, and you can see here that same exact kind of default behavior here. Let me show you what this looks like in the designer. I'll show you the one I didn't customize, the one that you're going to get as part of the goodies today. We've got a document that describes how to customize it. Now here is the same form, but it's not in the list form anymore. It's in a full-fledged InfoPath form. And you can see that we have a data source that looks more hierarchical. We can add repeating data. And the same technique applies. You're going to basically come over here, you're going to add your text, and then when you drag and drop fields over, you have more options. So if we select, we have this more options here. We can just do the drag and drop from the data source if it works. Sometimes it's a little bit finicky. Okay, so that's how you're going to modify the form. The benefit here is that you can publish this to a new location. So you can take our starter template with the header and the footer, and you can replace the header and the footer with your secret sauce here, the stuff that you want to make it look like your stuff. And you get this kind of out-of-box feel to it, so you don't have to worry about recreating it. So here I've done this, here's the form I created. So it's the same one. We'll just obviously this is going to look a little bit different than the list form. So let me just add one more option here. We'll add a presentation for dashboards. Okay, and now we'll publish this out to SharePoint. And here you see I have the option of creating a new library. Before I publish it, it wants me to save it. Okay, so it's going to automatically default to where I published it before, but I can put in a new library here. I'm just going to choose the default though for now. And here you have the ability to promote the column data, which is what we'd want to do to get the data into the form. into the view. And once we've published it up there, we can open it in the browser, just like the list form. And here's our form in the browser that we just created. Dashboard designs right there on the top. And we'll say 3 stars this time. Something like that. Okay, so that's a very simple form that we've used to create a survey. And surveys are a very common example of forms. Obviously, we've got a typo here in the title, survey, but you get the idea. And I can go in here and edit that data and say, well, actually, we'll do 4 stars here. And there it is, updated. So the benefit of the starter form is it gives you consistency, simple design. You don't have to worry about recreating the container, the header, the footer, and you just create it once and you reuse it over and over again. The downside of the starter form is that it's a sharp knife. You're using the InfoPath Designer, so you can cut yourself. You can do something in the designer that causes a problem. For example, if you're not laying this stuff out correctly, you can cause problems. Now we've created this sample for you to help you lay out the questions and whatnot, but it's very easy for you to go in here and screw things up, and not mean to, right? So that's because you're using the full-fledged designer. Now, you know about that downside, so that's not a huge deal. The other thing that you want to keep in mind here is that this sample that we give you has a fixed data source, so it's not repeating data. If you look at the data source on the right here, you can see that we've got folders for different questions, but there's a fixed number of questions here. In fact, I've deleted some, but it started off with 20, and you can delete the ones you don't use, but the idea here is that it's a fixed number. It's not a variable number of questions. And every time I create a new form, I have to republish it, which isn't a huge burden, but anyway, the biggest burden here is that it's easy for your form designers to make a mistake and mess up the form. So I want to show you one more technique, and this is the config form technique. And I'm going to show you this. I'm actually going to show you this first in the fill it out here. So we have 2 forms we're using for the config technique. One form is actually our question editor. This form we use to add questions. Here you can see I've got presentation information. Now this is not InfoPath Designer. This is a browser-based form. So we can go in here and we can add, let's see here, let's say we did a webinar on, let's see, browser performance. Okay, so I've just added an option to my drop-down. So there's 4 questions in this. Let's add another question here at the bottom. Future topics, and we'll add. We'll make that the title, and we'll add a question underneath it for what webinar topic should we cover in the future. And here we'll make this just a regular text box. You notice we have these types of controls. We can do a checkbox, a date picker, combo box, radio button. So we've got a stock list of controls we can use, not the full panoply, not the full set of controls that InfoPath provides us, but still enough for us to use. And we'll submit this. Okay, so we've just created a questionnaire using an InfoPath form. Now it's not the designer, it's just a form. So we have another form over here. Let's see if I can find it, that allows us to fill it out. So this form, on load, it pulls the questionnaires that we've created into the browser, and it pulls the questions from the survey into it. You can see here's that last one we just added. And we can fill it out. Now you can actually create, you don't need to have a drop down here. You can send, we have in our documentation, we explain how you can navigate to the survey and you can remove you can see here we've removed the dashboard on top. One of the things that a lot of people ask us for is to make the form look like it's not SharePoint. So here we're actually in SharePoint, We've opened the form though, and there's no dashboard on top. We can also change the URL that we navigate back to, so they can fill it out and navigate back to another place. And that's all in the documentation that we're going to provide you today. So here I'm just going to fill this out. And select, let's say Alyssa is doing the webinar. And we'll give Alyssa 5 stars. We'll submit the form. And it's submitting it back to a separate library. It's taking us, it's changing the URL. It's actually submitting it back to this library. And here's the form that we just filled out. Open this in the browser just to show you that yes, indeed, that's the form we filled out. Now, how do we do this? So we have here 2 forms. This is the starter form. So I'm going to close this so I don't get confused. I'm going to show you the 2 forms we use. So we have a question editor form. So this is the question editor form in the designer. When we create the survey, we're actually using the InfoPath browser form to fill it out. Here's the designer for that form. So it's got a repeating structure. It has a bunch of different options. It has a button here to add new ones, and so on, right? You can see the structure on the right. This is extensible, normalized structure, variable number of questions. That's good. A lot of different options on the questions. And then we also have a filler form. Not this one. This is the list form. Close this out. Here's the filler. So the filler form has the same basic structure on the right, and then in the view we have different options for different types of questions, right? So it's a repeating structure, and then we hide these different options depending on what the question type is. Okay? Then we have a submit button. So once again, we're using header, footer to ease our design, reduce our time to create the form. The benefits of the 2-form solution, the config form and the filler form, is that it's data-driven, so it's more flexible. If things change, you can quickly make updates to the data. You can quickly create new surveys. Very fast to create forms. Most importantly, you're not going to cut yourself. It's not as sharp a knife as the full-fledged InfoPath designer. We're restricting what they can do in the form because it's not the designer, it's the filler. The downside is you get more of a vertical layout, and that's true actually for the other ones I showed you, but it is not easy to, actually you can't very easily lay the form out in a horizontal way. It has to be one question after another in a vertical layout. So you're kind of restricted there, but you can customize how it looks. You saw how we did that. And it's slightly more work to configure this, but we've included a document in the goodies today that will show you how to do that. So that's pretty much it for the quick presentation and demos. And we've got some questions here. We'll take the questions. I want to let Alyssa chime in here. But first, let's answer Michelle's question. How did you get the 5 stars? Great question. So what we have done here with the 5 stars is we've just included images, 5 stars that are selected and 5 stars that are not. And then we just basically have this custom control that we included. And depending on which button they click, we set the value. And we hide and show these images based on what value is set. So we have rules here for each one. You can see if we select the first button here, it will actually set a value. It'll set the rating equal to 1, I believe. Let's see if we can see that. Yeah, it says equal to 1. If we select the 5th image, it's going to set it equal to 5. And then when it's set, it actually shows these images. So the images also have formatting on them to hide show. This is a kind of a cool technique. We also have a rating control that we've created, an XML template part that you can easily add to your forms to get that rating functionality. I don't know if I have that rating control on this machine. I've just recently installed InfoPath 2013 on this, a new version of it. I was running the preview for a while. When you get the XML template part from us and you're designing a form from scratch, you'll see it appear up here, and you can see here that I do have the rating control there. So I can quickly just add it to my form, and this is the functionality, right? It's kind of a nice way to allow people to quickly rate something. Great question, Michelle. Thank you. Hopefully I answered that. Ms. Misty's got a question. Can you add logic to any of these types of survey forms? If you select answer B, skip to question 6. Yes, actually, that is in there. That is in the control. Now, the downside of adding logic to the survey form is the browser is going to do a postback. So it's going to give that spinning icon saying, hey, we're contacting the server. And it takes a second or so. But the reason why is because it has to evaluate the condition. And here I didn't add any conditions to the survey form, but we do have conditions in here. And I think if we look at the data source for the filler form, actually that was the filler. If we look at the data source here, trying to see where it is, but there was, yeah, we do have conditionality, and you can add it, and it's not hard to do. Trying to see where it is, but yeah, to answer your question, you can definitely do conditional sub questions and so on. In other words, if they answer a certain way, you show them the sub question. If they don't, you don't show it. Actually, I don't want to show you this one. I want to show you the other one here. This should have, here's the hide condition here. So the designer actually has that condition in it, and you can conditionalize the questions based on that. So it is there. Gus has a question. Do all concepts and starter forms you mentioned work with IP 2007? That's a good question. The images don't. So the image controls, button images are part of 2010 and up. In general, we're really targeting 2010 and up with this webinar, but my hunch is that the Demo 2 and Demo 3, the starter form and the config form, will work with 2007 with the exception of this image here, and everything else should work just fine in 2007. What you'll want to do is you'll want to go into form options, and you'll want to set it equal to the 2007 version. And then when you do that, you can check the design checker to make sure that it's in compliance. So you can see here that for the 2007, the picture button is not supported. But that's the only issue we have here. Great question. Okay, so that's it for the questions. So I'd like to quickly hand the mic over to Alyssa, who's going to talk about what we do as a company, and she's also going to talk about our upcoming training. Alyssa?
Thank you, Patrick. Hi, everyone. This is Alyssa St. Germain, and I'm with Qdabra Software as well. Just wanted to let you know a little bit more about what we have to offer besides these weekly webinars. We have a great community, InfoPathDev.com. It's a free support forum, and we guarantee a 90% response rate to posted questions. Also on this website, we have other learning materials, such as blogs, product information, and downloads. So it's a great resource. We also offer pay-as-you-go support for more urgent blocking issues. So if you don't have time to wait for a response on that website, you can pay as you go. We take in consulting work as well. If you have a project that you need assistance with, feel free to contact us. Along with our services, we also have many tools and templates to help you jumpstart your projects, and a great web service as well, DBXL. We offer training courses for different levels of experience, and we offer both online and in-person courses depending on your preference. And we do actually have an upcoming training course this May, and that's going to be in Kirkland, Washington, just right outside the Seattle area. And that's May 14th through the 16th. And we also have an online course coming up, and that's June 10th through the 14th. And just a little bit here, some details about what you're going to be learning in that course. And also, don't feel intimidated by being a master class. It's certainly for different levels of knowledge, and we're there to help you. So feel free to contact us if you have any questions about that at all.
Thank you, Alyssa. So any questions? Any more questions? We do have a minute or two left here. We do have a lot of goodies for you today. All you have to do is answer that feedback on the webinar, GoToWebinar page. Hopefully you'll get the feedback. If you don't, let us know. We had an issue last week, and I want to also thank you for your patience. I know we had there's a bug on the GoToWebinar site Tuesday morning that we had to fix. Some of you could not register quickly. But we do have a goodies today. I'm just going to quickly show you what we're going to get as part of the package if you fill out that feedback form. We've got the survey list form that I showed to begin with. We also have the starter form that is not a list form. You get the one a document here that describes how to customize it. Nice document there for you to look at. And then we have the config stuff. So we have how to create the config form, how to deploy it, and we've got the question editor and the survey filler. So you've got all of those goodies in your kit today, plus the slide deck that I'll include. And any more questions? Looks like we have one more question here. Details. So Imran, you want the details for the 5 stars. Well, how about if I just include it in the demo 3 here, and I'll show you how to add it here to your form once again. So the details. You can do this on your own. You can create the form on your own by just starting the designer, and then we will send you. We'll include the XTP, the XML template part, with the kit today as part of Demo 3. And what that will do is it'll install. It'll basically be an XTP2 file that you install, and you'll just add it to your form by going into the custom controls, add or remove custom controls, and then you'll add it. It will be an XML template part. You'll browse to that directory for the XTP2, and then you'll be able to select it as part of your controls here. You'll see rating appear down below. And then you'll be able to see how we did it with these images. So it's pretty simple. You can also do this yourself by just adding an image and then setting up the rules like I showed earlier to answer Misty's question. You're very welcome, Michelle. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. We will get this webinar posted on YouTube, and like I said, we will send you the goodies if you send us your feedback. That's it. Have a great day.